This is Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app. Now, live from the Matt Black Kia Studios.
Oh, what an attack! Oh, what a move!
Here's Josh Hennig.
Josh Hennig here on Game Night, Friday edition on 97.3 ESPN, the 97.3 ESPN mobile app, and live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. You can watch the show right here on 97.3 ESPN. Glad to have you guys on board the show today. We got a lot to get to. What is going on with the Eagles and their offseason. Also, Sixers at the All-Star break and UFC 259. It is tomorrow night. Not one, not two, but three titles are on the line. We're going to head out to Las Vegas coming up in about 18 minutes from now. John Morgan from USA Today MMA Junkie is going to join us to get more into the fight card. He'll be joining us on the live stream where you can watch the show here on 97.3 ESPN. 609-403-0973 is the text board to get in on the conversation. Plus, you can also, like I said, comment as you watch the stream on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Just a little rundown on a little bit of news that's been popping off throughout the day today. Of course, all your Eagles coverage is over at 97.3ESPN.com and the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. So you got going on right now. Jason Kelce is restructuring his deal. Darius Slay is restructuring his deal. Lane Johnson told Eagles insider Derek Gunn earlier on Derek Gunn's podcast that he is going to restructure his deal. So now you are now potentially going to get very, very close to getting under that number that you need to get under financially a lot sooner than maybe you thought. You know, this was a thing that I thought might come down maybe next week. Might be a little closer to the start of the league year, but they're getting the job done earlier and before that. So I think it's a huge deal to keep in mind. The Eagles are getting their financial house in order a lot sooner than maybe we all thought. I think it's a big deal because I know that there's a perception of the Philadelphia Eagles and this offseason, and I love what Adam Kaplan explained earlier on the Sports Bash, NFL Insider, host of the Inside the Birds podcast, because for those who don't know, the contract restructuring is something that comes down to trust in between players and the organization. Because when you're moving around money like that, what you're doing is you're creating these scenarios for the team to potentially get rid of you maybe sooner than later. What they're doing is a lot of times they're taking base salaries, they're taking guaranteed money, and they're giving it to you a lot of times in bonuses and incentives, ways to get it from affecting the salary cap as much. And this is what Adam Kaplan said earlier about how that works.
This is what they do, you know. I mean, I know for a fact, talking to agents, some agents over the years turned down, through the players, turned down their restructures. So it's going to be fascinating to see what happens here.
I know NFL agents who they and their players turn down restructures. This is what the Eagles do. They restructure contracts. They've been doing this since the Joe Banner era. And Andrew Brandt talked about this on the Sports Bash with Mike Gill. But the fact that Kaplan just kind of dropped that little nugget, oh, by the way, agents don't always do this. They don't always want to do this. That tells you that the Eagles are maybe in a better situation than we thought. You know, sometimes we get so hung up on the number, right? The idea that there is a number and it's bad and it's a problem and this and that. But then we forget that the organization has weeks on end to get this straightened up. They have weeks on end to get this lined up. And that's why we can end up in a situation like we are right now, whereas Adam Kaplan says Kelce wants to be here and the Eagles wanted him too.
Both sides to answer your question. They wanted to do a deal here. As I said, Jason wanted to come back, and the Eagles wanted him back. They definitely wanted him back. He was a Pro Bowler. We could argue whether he should have been or not, but he was. And he's still one of the best centers of the National Football League. It's not a great position in general when you talk to NFL teams. It's one of the hardest to find talent. Even at 33 years old, he turns 34 in November. He's still one of the top 5 centers of the National Football League.
Kelsey wants to be here. The Eagles want him here. And that's why the deal gets done. That's why these restructures get done, because there's a level of trust between both sides. And I know there's a contingent of people out there who hate Howie Roseman, and I can't help you because your hate is irrational for the man. You just don't like the guy. It's not logical. It's illogical. All right. I'm as critical as anybody of anybody who makes a mistake. We can all be critical. But to act like Howie Roseman is horrible, this clearly proves that he's not the worst GM in the league. The players trust him enough to get these restructures done. I told the story a little bit earlier on the Sports Bash. Go back to 2016. Remember when Lane Johnson was suspended for 10 games? He lost $32 million of guaranteed money out of his contract. Now, he was still able to make that money later on, but there was no guarantee he would ever see that $32 million ever again, all because he took a set of amino acids that were tainted with substances that were considered banned by the NFL, performance-enhancing drugs. And to this day, we're still not 100% sure what exactly he took or didn't take, but we know he hasn't gotten in trouble ever since. Well, here's the deal. When the Eagles restructured his contract, they made sure that he got that money back. 28 of the $32 million he lost, they found a way to get him back. Guaranteed money that was gone, they found a way to put it back in his pocket. That means that you are setting an example to the rest of the league. Hey, we take care of our guys. You're telling the guys in the locker room, hey, we care about you. Whether you like or dislike Howie Roseman and how the Eagles do their business, the reality is that they actually do care about their players. And the players respect that in return. And I think that's a big part of all this. The restructures and how this works is a big deal. We'll get to your comments in just a moment as you watch on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, and also at 609-403-0973 on the text board. I do want to remind you about my article today over at 973ESPN.com, the 973 ESPN mobile app. Jason Peters had some very interesting things to say about Carson Wentz, okay? Some very interesting things to say about Carson Wentz did Jason Peters. I'm going to read you the one quote here. Just to give you a little context. He was on Good Morning Football on NFL Network, and he didn't start with Carson Wentz, but they eventually got to the Wentz stuff. And he said, Carson is a great player. He was just in Philadelphia. It's a hard city to play for, man. They're critical of every play, inch, foot, year. You got to bring it every year or Philadelphia will eat you up, man. That was what Jason Peters said on Good Morning Football. Now, listen, as you can read on my article, I explained to you why what Jason Peters said was definitely conflating things, because I think that a lot of times we mix and match between if somebody's a good person, and it tends to jade how we view them in their profession. You know, if somebody's a great person, maybe we give them more leniency, and if someone's a bad person, we give them more criticism. But the fact that he went right to Philadelphia is a hard city to play for, you got to bring it every year or Philadelphia will eat you up. It's almost like Peters is saying without saying that Carson couldn't handle Philadelphia anymore. I think in many ways he's better off not here. Now, Jason Peters also said he wants to come back and play in the NFL, but he understands it probably won't be with the Eagles. So I hope it's not with the Eagles. I don't need to see that guy getting injured for the 200th time in the middle of a game and missing snaps because of a hamstring or an ankle or a knee or a hip or his back or his shoulder or whatever else he's gone through. But listen, this is now the third Eagles player who was a teammate of Carson Wentz to step lightly around talking about him. Remember, it was Jalen Mills who said, well, you know, Carson understands he had a bad year, but he's a fiery competitor. But Jalen Hurts is a leader. And you're like, wait a minute. Hurts is a leader. Wentz is a fiery competitor. Wentz is a perfectionist. Hurts is a winner. Are you saying without saying that you'd rather have Hurts than Wentz, it's a weird dichotomy, you know, and then Peters is sitting there blaming the city of Philadelphia for Wentz, basically. It's a very strange thing, though. These players are really not going all out in anything on Wentz. They're kind of like complimenting him, but then they're also saying, well, you know, you got to understand the situation. I think part of the reason why they're saying is because, you know, maybe there's a possibility that Jason Peters looks at the Colts and says, you know, Anthony Costanzo retired. Maybe they need a tackle out there. It's possible. You don't want to say anything too bad about the guy. It might be your teammate next year. Just saying. Maybe Jalen Mills is thinking, I might have to be Carson Wentz's teammate somewhere else down the road. Maybe there's a time the Eagles don't want me. I got to go to Indianapolis or wherever Wentz is, and I got to be his teammate again. I don't want to say too much trash on him. Just keep that in mind next time you see an athlete say something. Maybe they're saying it because they know they might have to play with somebody again. Maybe they know they don't want it to come back to bite them. A couple of your comments over here. We got Gabe watching on Facebook at 973 ESPN talking about the players getting a restructure. Gabe says, then that player runs the risk of being cut if they don't restructure, especially if you're a player north of 30, talking about, you know, why these players are willing to restructure. Well, that's not true, Gabe. You got to remember that part of the reason why you're restructuring is because you can't cut them. The money is guaranteed. So let me just pull up a contract that is not any of the guys that got restructured, just to use it as an example. Let's go with Fletcher Cox, all right? I'm just pulling up a random guy with a big contract on the Eagles roster, all right? Now, of course, there's a possibility that Fletcher restructures his deal too, and everything I'm going to say might be switched around. But so Fletcher Cox is on the books next year for a base salary of $15 million. His total cap hit is $23 million. Now, none of that money, though, is guaranteed. So, if the Eagles were to cut him, it's a dead cap hit of $21 million. It's only a savings of $2 million. The majority of his money is tied up in his base and his prorated bonus, all right? Because you get bonuses for being on the roster, for showing up at camp, for performances, etc. If Fletcher was to restructure his deal, all right, if he was to work the money around, then that cap hit goes from $23 million to half. And if the Eagles were to cut him outright, it would actually be a savings of $11 million, and there would be no dead money at all. So actually, Gabe, the restructure actually makes it easier for a team to cut a guy. Maybe we're forgetting that the restructure at times doesn't always help the player. Kelsey got a ton of money up front for this restructure. And that's part of the deal. When you restructure, you're saying, all right, I know that we have a guaranteed base salary of $15 million, a prorated bonus of 7.8, 15.7 equals $22 million. That's where the cap number comes from. Well, what if we take that prorated bonus and that base salary and turn it into a roster bonus? Well, all of a sudden, maybe you're shuffling the money around. You're still going to get your total of $23 million potentially by the end of the year. But instead of it coming at the end of the year, like in the original contract, you're getting that money shoved to you at the very beginning. That's how the Eagles were able to give Jason Kelsey that bump in pay, because the money was shoved up front and it doesn't actually go on the books. Remember, signing bonuses do not count against the salary cap. If you've ever listened to guys like Andrew Brandon, I know Mike Gill listens to his podcast a lot. If you ever listen to guys like, Field Yates from ESPN, who's a salary cap savant, these guys explain all the time. Those signing bonuses are how teams get around not having to have these huge dead cap hits. So it's actually the opposite, Gabe. If guys like Jason Kelsey, Lane Johnson, Fletcher Cox, they restructure their deal, they're actually in more trouble of getting cut short and long term, and they're getting the money up front. That's why the players do it sometimes, because they know, hey, you give me the money up front. If I'm smart with my money, I can save it and then move forward. One more comment I want to get in here before we hit the break here. We got to talk some UFC 259 coming up with John Morgan from USA Today MMA Junkie here on GameNight on 97.3 ESPN. Dennis, watching on YouTube, says, maybe there's no trash on Wentz. And listen, I'm not saying there is trash on Wentz, all right? What I'm saying, Dennis, is that if you go and read my article on 97.3 ESPN.com, I explain that we use words like great and good, and we use these adjectives, and it's not that Wentz is a great player. It's that he's a great human being. Listen, Wentz does a ton of charity work. Wentz is just a good human being. He's a family guy. He gives money to charity. He raises money for people in Haiti. He helps children with disabilities. He surprised that young boy Giovanni after he left the team. He didn't have to do that. He doesn't do any of the stuff that he does. He's just a good human being. So it's not that there's trash on him. It's that players don't want to trash him. They don't want to speak ill of him because they're saying, Wentz is a good guy. I'm still rooting for him to be successful. Yeah, he had a bad year. Yeah, he's been a roller coaster ride. Yeah, maybe he wasn't my favorite guy in the world. Listen, we all work with people who, they might not be your favorite person, but you still like them as a human being, okay? We all work with guys who we look at them and we're like, listen, I would never hang out with so-and-so, but we still think they're a good human being. And I still kind of want to hang around and play or work with that person, so I'm not going to speak ill of them. All right, we'll get more of your comments as you watch on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter at 973 ESPN in just a bit. But coming up next, UFC 259 preview. Not one, not two, but three belts are on the line tomorrow night on the pay-per-view. And get more of that with John Morgan from MMA Junkie coming up next here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN FM and 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Sea Isle City. Don't forget the website, 973ESPN.com. One of the things I love about betting on basketball with Fanduel Sportsbook is I'm always finding new player props and game lines. And what's cool about Fanduel Sportsbook is you can combine those props with other bets from the same game to score an even bigger payout. It's called a same game parlay bet, and you can only find them with FanDuel Sportsbook. You can combine point spreads, player props, over-unders, and more into a same game parlay to get a big payout on a small bet. And right now, new and existing users can get up to $25 in site credit back each day if your parlay falls one leg short with same game parlay insurance. So just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app today and sign up with my promo code Hennig to try the same game parlays and get the same game parlay insurance. That's promo code Hennig when you sign up with FanDuel Sportsbook. Must be 21 in order to play and present in NJRPA. Refund issued as non-withdrawable site credit that expires in 7 days. Max refund $25. See sportsbook.fanduel.com for full terms, conditions, and details. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
You're listening to Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.
Josh Hennig here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN FM, the 97.3 ESPN mobile app, and we are live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, where you can see myself and John Morgan, USA Today MMA Junkie lead reporter, joins us right now on the Boardwalk kind of hotline here on 97.3 ESPN. John, good to see you in the virtual flesh. How you doing, man?
I'm doing good, man. Thanks for having me, brother.
Oh, it's a nice microphone you got over there. Good job by you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
It's very professional looking over there.
Stepping our game up here, man. Pandemic's doing some good things, too. You got to up your home office game.
Exactly. So let's get into this fight card tomorrow night. Obviously, there's 3 fights that are just eye-popping for everyone. And I think the biggest eye-popper is where some of the biggest news with the fight card is coming in. You got Adesanya moving up to 205, but he didn't weigh at 205, John. I thought that part was interesting. He just shows up with a pizza box and goes up there and he's at 200.5 pounds.
Yeah, pretty fantastic to see this morning. He told us, look, I'm moving up a division, but I don't want to change my body. He's the current middleweight title holder, which is 185 pounds, and he intends to go back there. He said, look, that's my division. I'm coming after this. I'm chasing greatness, but I intend on going back and defending my middleweight belt as well. So I don't want to pack on muscle. We hear guys that are moving up a division say, I want to take it slow because I want to really build into the division. Basically, he just didn't end up cutting any weight and kind of walked in at what he walked around at. So as you said, under the limit there, 200.5 pounds. But, man, it's such an intriguing fight on paper. Here he is, looking to really do something great, be a reigning dual division title holder. But he's facing a very dangerous man in Jan Blachowicz to get it done.
The other interesting thing is that, right now on the sports books, Israel is such a heavy favorite. And I understand he's got the kickboxing background, but it's a part of me that looks at him and says he's not the biggest and strongest middleweight I've ever seen, right, John? So when you saw him fight Anderson, actually watching that fight this week, Anderson and him are, not exactly like the same exact size. Anderson even was a little bigger than he was at the time. So when Anderson moved up to 205, you're like, okay, I kind of see it. But Israel, even for 205 standards, is not very big. And Jan, he's a big 205er.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think the line is a little bit understandable just when you think about the star power of Israel Adesanya, right? He's the guy that has the name value and the name recognition. So I think there's a little bit of, kind of that emotion in the betting line here. But listen, I will say this for my official pick in our staff picks at MMA Junkie, I did go with Israel Adesanya. I think he's special, man. I think, you look at his 20-0 record in mixed martial arts and, he's answered questions time and time again. But I would agree with you that, if you're looking for some value on an underdog play, Jan Blachowicz might be the way to go there, because if he does land a shot, now granted, that will not be easy. Adesanya is the faster fighter. He's the slicker fighter. He's the more mobile fighter. As you said, his kickboxing career has given him some elite level striking. But Blachowicz is a big, strong, powerful guy. And if he lands, it could be very, very big problems for Israel Adesanya. And, oh, by the way, Jan Blachowicz got a pretty good grappling game as well. He's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. So if he takes the fight to the ground, he can be very heavy and strong there as well. So I do believe there are paths to victory for Jan Blachowicz. And listen, Israel Adesanya, as confident as he is, as great of a talker as he is, he's made it clear he sees this as a challenge. He doesn't think he's walking into some fight where he's just going to run right through Jan Blachowicz. This is going to be a test for him.
By the way, for those who are wondering, Adesanya is plus 135 to win by knockout or TKO, and Blachowicz is plus 188 right now on the money line. So, listen, maybe if you're somebody who's looking to throw a little something on it, you just kind of play both sides and kind of see what happens. You get value either way. John Morgan joining us here on GameNight on 97.3 ESP on the Boardwalk on the hotline. Of course, USA Today, MMA Junkie. You can follow him on Twitter at MMA Junkie John. John, obviously, also with this fight, whoever wins is going to dictate what happens next. If Jan wins, well, maybe you start lining up new guys at light heavyweight that haven't fought him yet. But if Israel wins, that throws a lot of questions in. And I go back to remember, when Conor moved up, he obviously moved up for 155 and he vacated 145. But you just said Israel's not moving up to say I'm forgetting about 185. So if you go just put your kind of, genie crystal ball hat on, if Israel does win this belt, as most people think he does, what does that mean for 205?
Well, it's really interesting because there's a lot of variables at play. As you said there, the middleweight division is still at hand, and you got Darren Till out there. You've got Robert Whittaker is back in the mix as well. There's a lot of options for him at 185 pounds. But, and he said he wants to go there. Here's what interests me a lot is John Jones has certainly been getting into it online with Israel Adesanya. They have been going at each other through the media and through social media as well. And John Jones has moved up to heavyweight, by the way. He has given up the light heavyweight title. That's how Jan Blachowicz was crowned champion with the win over Dominic Reyes. And he's now looking at a heavyweight career. There's a possibility that if Israel Adesanya wins this, he may even move up to heavyweight as well. So there's all kinds of questions on the table as this guy is, chasing after greatness. It's really remarkable what he's trying to do here, and this would be a huge step in the right direction. So a lot of questions after this, and I'm going to be interested to see. Adesanya keeps saying, "Listen, middleweight is my division. I'm going to go back there." But if he wins this and his star power is peaking, you mentioned the name Conor McGregor. There's a lot of people that believe Adesanya has the type of star power capabilities. He's got that X factor about him that he could grow into the kind of global phenomenon that Conor McGregor is, that transcends the sport. If he's heading in that direction, I don't know that there's any name out there other than John Jones or other than the heavyweight champion, whether it be Stipe Miocic or Francis Ngannou, that makes sense for this guy, as bizarre as that is to say. So there are going to be a lot of opportunities available if Adesanya wins this fight.
What about the possibility of Adesanya defending his 185 belt against a guy moving up like Kamaru Usman?
Whoo, now see, now you're talking about, I don't know if they would do that. They got that kind of Nigerian love for each other. They got that kind of connection there. So I don't know that they would necessarily go against each other, but it's certainly a possibility. I mean, look, this guy, he is, man. He oozes star power, and he's fun to watch. He's exciting. You start talking about 21-0 with 2 different UFC titles. I mean, yeah, you're looking at the biggest fights available at that point. At that point, the traditional career trajectory just doesn't work for him anymore. Now you're just looking for the biggest things. That's when you start doing things like, and I don't want to say this because I don't want to see it happen, but when Conor McGregor went and boxed Floyd Mayweather, it's for us hardcores. We knew that, he didn't really have a chance to beat Floyd Mayweather, but it sure was one heck of a spectacle, man. A lot of people tuned in, and it obviously changed, his financial status for his children, his children's children, and their children, for the rest of their lives. So, there are going to be big things on the table for Israel Adesanya if he wins this fight.
Let's jump over to a couple of the other fights because there's 2 other amazing fights on this card. The greatest women's MMA fighter of all time, Amanda Nunes, defending her belt against Megan Anderson at 145. And I believe that's a very interesting part of this because, when Amanda moved up originally and took out Cyborg, there's a lot of people wondering, well, who is there out there? And Megan's been an up-and-comer. People might not know about her as much, but she is herself a physical freak in nature. So this is one of those fights to me that is very interesting because, listen, Amanda may be the heavy favorite, but Amanda's no pushover.
Yeah, no, listen, Amanda Nunes is the favorite for a reason here. She's, as you said, the women's greatest of all time. I mean, I don't even think it's an argument anymore, especially once she knocked out Cyborg. I think she claims that throwing all her own. So she's the heavy favorite, and understandably so. There's not a woman on the planet that I would pick against Amanda Nunes. She's operating at that high of a level. But this opportunity, this fight with Megan Anderson is the one that we've wanted to see for a while because of, Megan's size, what she brings to the table. She is a legitimate 6-foot-tall featherweight that packs power. Maybe not quite the speed and athleticism of Amanda Nunes. So that's going to be the biggest challenge is, can she stay mobile? Can she stay out of the way? Can she keep, using her length to her advantage, pawing out the jab, using the front kicks, doing things to keep Amanda Nunes at bay. If you're looking for intangibles, I mean, Amanda Nunes is a new mother. You wonder, is has she been spending a lot of time bonding with the child versus, actually in the gym training? Who knows? I mean, that might not matter at all once the cage door locks behind it. But it is an interesting challenge. Listen, again, I can't pick against Amanda Nunes, but as you said, the body type that Megan Anderson brings to the table, if she uses it right, she can at least make it interesting because she does have a legitimate size advantage over Nunes.
Now, Amanda is a 2-belt holder definitively right now. She's done it a couple times now defending both belts. What is next for her? Because I think a lot of people are wondering, what does she do? Does she stay at 135? Does she stay at 145? I feel like there's really no right answer to this, though, John.
That's the problem, is that unfortunately we've got a couple of these in the women's division, right? At flyweight, it's Valentina Shevchenko, who's just incredibly dominant, and so you just don't even know who's next. To be honest with you, there aren't any next contenders where you just go, that's the fight we have to see. That's the one that needs to get done. There's a couple ones out there. Aspen Ladd has been kind of an up-and-comer that's been, getting herself back into the title mix at 135 pounds. She had a setback, but and some surgeries, but she's one that we might like to see. There are rematches on the table with fighters like Jermaine De Randami, with Holly Holm as well. So there are names. Juliana Pena is back in the mix as well after she took a couple years off to have a baby and start raising her child. So there are names. It's just unfortunately she's such a dominant champion for Amanda. There's nobody that's like, hey, listen, we don't know if she's really the rightful, title holder until we see this fight. It's not that. What I always try to tell people is, look, when Amanda Nunes is fighting, just appreciate it. I mean, she's going to go down in the history books as the greatest of all time. Maybe somebody will come along one day and beat the records that she's put together. But right now, just savor it because you don't know when she's going to call it quits. She's got a lot of money in the bank, and she doesn't have a whole lot to prove in the sport. So for now, you just enjoy it.
John Morgan joining us here on GameNight on 97.3 ESPN at MMA Junkie John on Twitter. Lead staff reporter for MMA Junkie USA Today. UFC 259 tomorrow night. The third fight on the pay-per-view might actually be the best fight of the night. I mean, this is the fight that got me salivating. Jan, Sterling. Listen, I love both of these fighters. I don't even know who I want to pick in this fight because I feel like both of them have passed the victory. And like I said, this might be the fight of the night because these guys are absolutely electric, John.
Yeah, I could not agree with you more. I mean, obviously the main event is extremely, exciting because of the kind of history that's at stake there and what Israel Adesanya is trying to prove and, seeing him move up a weight class. That's special. But when you talk about a fight that's happening in a division, Peter Yan and Aljamain Sterling, just absolutely unbelievable. Clash of styles. Peter Yan is this incredible striker, man. Fantastic boxing, quick, combinations, power, seems to get more energy as the fight wears on. So, he doesn't slow down in the later stages of the fight. Meanwhile, you've got Aljamain Sterling, who is an absolutely incredible high-level grappler, just has an innate ability to get to the back and, threaten with the chokes. And once he's there, he's chaining submissions together, looking for one to the other. You defend one move, and all of a sudden he switches to the next, and now you've got to adjust your defenses as well. So a clash in styles, both guys peaking. And, oh, by the way, they kind of don't like each other either. They've been talking a little bit of trash back and forth. The face-offs today got a little bit testy. I think Peter Yan, who doesn't speak a lot of English, learned an F word or two that he could throw in the direction of his friend in English. So it was exciting. There's tension in the air, and as you said, just the two of the best in the planet. So I agree with you. I am so intrigued by this fight because basically it boils down to who's going to be able to implement their game plan. I mean, this is in this day and age, everybody's well-rounded. You don't have anybody that has a singular skill set, but Peter Yan has the better striking. Meanwhile, Aljamain Sterling has the better grappling. It's that simple. So who's going to be able to implement their game plan? That's what we're going to see, and it's an exciting one.
I'm glad you said that because to me, the thing that stands out to me is that, I know Aljamain is on this winning streak, but before that winning streak, he had that knockout loss to Marlon Moraes. And there's part of me that wonders, does Yan coerce Aljamain into a striking match, kind of like what Conor did to Eddie Alvarez years ago, and get him off of his game plan, and maybe that's the path to victory? Or does Aljamain listen to his corner, which is among the best on the planet, in his ear, saying, hey, man, this is the game plan, this is the path to victory?
I think that's such a great point. Conor McGregor was the master of mental warfare and getting guys to fight outside of their comfort zone, to fight angry. And sometimes when you fight angry, you're not making the best decisions. You're just going out there swinging hard, looking to prove a point rather than doing, the more tactical, smart thing to do. I do think at this point, I think earlier in his career, Sterling would have been very susceptible to that. He was a bit of a hothead. I think as he's grown up a little bit, I don't think it's as much of a danger anymore. I think he understands and has matured quite a bit and understands what's at stake here. I mean, what's at stake in terms of, his career, his life, what it means for him financially, what it can do for him. He knows he can't fight forever, but you have that UFC champion in your back pocket. That stays with you forever, and that helps out your profile and your notoriety moving forward. Former UFC champion versus former UFC fighter, man, there's a big difference there, and I think he wants to get it accomplished here. So I think he'll fight within himself, but you never know, man. Those tempers can flare sometimes, and Peter Yan, it seems like he likes to stir the pot a little bit, and if he's jabbing you in your face and talking trash to you a little bit too, man, that'll set off a temper in anybody.
Again, that's UFC 259 tomorrow night on ESPN Plus pay-per-view. 3 title fights on the line. John, before I let you go, I got to ask you, there's a lot of rumors swirling around this week about fans are starting to be allowed back in the buildings. We saw Abu Dhabi had limited attendance. Even here in New Jersey with a governor like Murphy, he said, hey, you can have fans in the building. People are finding ways to get them back in the building. We know the UFC would love to do that. What is the status of a UFC event in America having fans?
I think we may see it as soon as April, to be honest with you. Some states are opening back up completely. Texas, one of those that has said, we're going to go ahead and open the doors 100%, no mask mandate, that sort of thing. What Dana White has said, as you said, in Abu Dhabi, there were limited fans. Now, Abu Dhabi has been a huge business partner for the UFC. Obviously, they set up that whole Fight Island bubble that allowed the UFC to operate internationally. So Dana kind of let them do what they wanted to do. But Dana White, UFC president, has said, when we do fans, we want to do a sold-out arena. We don't want to do any 25%. We don't want to do any 50%. We want to do a sold-out arena. But he's also said, I promise you, we will be first before any other sport. And I actually asked him this past week at a press conference. I said, hey, Texas is up and running. Have you contacted them yet? And he said, you're dang right I have. As soon as I heard it, I was on the phone with him. I reached out to Dallas. Dallas said, we're not ready for it yet. I'm talking to Houston as well. He said, actually, his words, he said, if I could move this week to an arena with fans, I'd do it. Obviously, you can't do that, but there is another pay-per-view later this month, and there's another in April as well. I think by April, we might be in an arena with sold-out fans. How that works out, we'll find out afterwards, but I think we might try to do it by April.
He's John Morgan for all your MMA coverage. MMA Junkie, USA Today. Follow John on Twitter at MMA Junkie John for all that news and notes. You heard him just say it there. He asked Dana White the question. Dana gave him the answer. That's because he is John Morgan, as all guests appearing on the Boardwalk kind of hotline. John, great stuff. Good to see you in the virtual flesh. And hopefully maybe when the UFC finally makes its way back out to the East Coast, we can hook up again.
Look forward to it. Pleasure being here, brother.
Josh Hennig here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. Of course, the text board is open at 609-403 0973. We are live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. We get back to your guys' comments on the streams here on 97.3 ESPN. Don't forget my FanDuel Sportsbook pick of the night. I might have just given you a little cue to what my picks are going to be. We'll get to those coming up next here on 97.3 ESPN FM, 97.3 ESPN, mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle City, and live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. You can watch the show, The Sports Batch with Mike Gill, Game Night with Josh Hennig, and more. 97.3 ESPN is where you follow.
Now, more Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.
Friday edition of Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. I am Josh Hennig, live in the Matt Black Kia studios. Yes, it's Matt Black Kia. They want to get you approved today. Matt Black Kia, the Black Horse Pike in Egg Harbor Township. I'll be getting your guys' reactions to the topics of the day so far about the Eagles, the contract restructures, what Jason Peters said about Carson Wentz, Sixers at the All-Star break. So much going on. UFC 259 tomorrow night. I'll be getting all that coming up in just a moment here. Again, text board is 609-403-0973. All of you watching live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, I'll pop up your comments as well. Got to remind you that Game Night is being brought to you by friends over at Fanduel Sportsbook. Listen, you want to add a little excitement to your sports weekend. You watch some college basketball this weekend, all right? You are, I suggest you listen to Jeff Nadeau and Mike Gill tomorrow morning on the best sports batch at 9 a.m. Maybe you're going to watch the NBA All-Star Game. You want to maybe get involved with some props, some over-unders. You can do it with FanDuel Sportsbook. The same game parlays. You can take everything and make it the most out of your bet. And right now, if you want to use any kind of bet on FanDuel Sportsbook, you can do it with your first risk-free bet up to $1,000. That's right. Same game parlays. First risk-free bet of $1,000, but you only get it with FanDuel Sportsbook. If you never tried FanDuel Sportsbook, what are you waiting for? Download the FanDuel Sportsbook app today and use my promo code Hennig. When you sign up, you get your first risk-free bet up to $1,000. That's promo code Hennig. When you sign up with FanDuel Sportsbook, must be 21 or to play. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Full terms and conditions at sportsbook.fanduel.com about the risk-free bet as well as same-game parlay insurance. You miss out on one leg on the same game parlay. You get the $25 back in site credit with FanDuel Sportsbook. I'll get you my FanDuel Sportsbook pick of the night just a little bit later in this hour, but right now, I promise I get to your guys' thoughts and comments. 609-403-0973 is the text. We're also you all watching the stream on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. The Joe Show, watching the show a little bit earlier, chimed in and says, whatever NFL team takes Jason Peters is making a mistake. Listen, man, I will never hold against somebody for trying to maximize their career, but I have to agree with you, at least on that level. I think that Peters, his career is done. I think that it made a little sense for him to move the guard, what they were going to do last year, but as soon as they bumped back about the tackle, you could tell. He doesn't have the foot speed anymore. He doesn't have the athleticism he used to. When Jason Peters was in his prime, and even a couple of years after his prime, before the injuries started piling up, he just would shut down an entire side of a line. He would make guys look bad. And at some point, he just lost it. I don't know if it was just the injuries. Maybe that could come out with Father Time. Whatever it is, he doesn't have it anymore. He doesn't have the foot speed. The athleticism is gone. He still has got some ability as a blocker, and we saw him be competent at times last year. I think that's where a team is going to lean on him and say, that's why I mentioned the Colts. Maybe the Colts can't find a better left tackle to replace Anthony Costanzo. Maybe they go to Jason Peters and be like, hey, can you cover? Can you fill the void? We're going to draft a tackle in the draft. Can you maybe come in and mentor this guy? So that's why I said maybe Jason Peters is being very careful in what he says about Carson Wentz because maybe he knows maybe the Colts are the team that's going to take him on for one more year. So, maybe there's something like that as well. But I agree with you, Joe Show. I don't believe in Jason Peters as a starting NFL offensive lineman anymore. But there are worse offensive linemen in the league. Look at the Seattle Seahawks. They have garbage in front of Russell Wilson. That's why he's complaining. And Peters is not garbage. He just makes some very poor mistakes and he has these injuries, these nagging injuries almost every game. So to me, that's more of the issue than anything else with him. Let's jump on the text board. We get to any more comments on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Again, we are live at 973 ESPN on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Also, the text board is open at 609-403-0973, 609-403-0973. So this texter is not too thrilled with our conversation about these players. He says, all this talk about these poor players doesn't even take into account what the average person out there thinks. It's ridiculous the amount of salaries they think they deserve. And, texter, I was with you. I understood where you're coming from until the very end, where you said think they deserve. I think that type of mentality is a little unnecessary, because we are all going to take what someone's willing to offer us. If someone came up to you, no matter what your job is willing to pay you 2, 3, 4 times more than anyone else is, are you just going to automatically just dismiss it out of hand and say, you know what, I don't want your money because I'm not worth that. I don't think I deserve that. No, you're going to say, if I have a chance to make life-changing money, if I have a chance to put my family in a better position, to change my life, to change my family's life, to change the people in my lives, everything that they know for the better, you're going to do it. Okay? It doesn't matter if you think someone deserves the money. Someone is willing to pay somebody that kind of money. And I think that's a very pessimistic, angry, unnecessary way to look at the world. I understand we live in a world where, because of Instagram and Twitter and Snapchat and Facebook and all these different things, that we have this habit of falling into jealousy. We have this habit of falling into this attitude of somebody who, says, I wish I had that. I wish I was in their position. I wish I had their life. I understand that is a bad habit that we all fall into and we are all victim of. None of us are immune from that feeling, that mentality. But I will never begrudge an athlete, ever, 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 for trying to maximize their earnings. A lot of these guys don't come from opportunity. They don't come from money. They don't come from circumstances that benefit them. I can tell you, as somebody who's met some of these athletes, who knows what they go through, a lot of these guys work harder and put more into their careers than anybody ever knows. And some of them have lifelong suffering because of their careers, because of injuries or concussions or something like that. So if an athlete's able to make $32 million, if someone's willing to pay them $100 million, I say more power to them. Because you know what? If that person worked their tail off, they're a good person, they're trying to do the right thing, I root for good people to be successful. That's just who I am. If you're a good person, I want you to have everything that's coming to you in life. If you're someone who works your tail off, I hope you get paid well. And Texter, I hope you get paid well. I hope you have opportunities to make more money than you actually have. I know you said in the text some of the money you've made in your life. I'm not going to spit that out on the radio because I don't want people to maybe try to figure out who you are or stuff like that. That's your business, okay? The money you make in your, as you say, 40 years and you cashed out. Listen, bless you. You say you're lucky, good for you. But you also say it's ridiculous the amount of money these guys think they deserve. I don't think they deserve anything. I think a lot of these athletes are fighting to change their lives, change their families' lives, change their futures, and have a better life for themselves, their family, their children. A lot of these athletes, they buy their moms new houses. They take care of their mom and dad. They take care of their aunt. They take care of their uncle. They take care of their brother. They take care of people in their lives. They do a lot of good with that money. A lot of these athletes, they give back to charity. They raise money for charity. They use their platform to be successful. And I think that for many of them, they don't think they deserve the money, but I would say that many times they actually do deserve the money, because these sports organizations make billions of dollars every year, and they don't make that money because they're just the NBA or the NHL or the Major League Baseball. They make it because of the players on the field. You don't go to a Phillies game if the roster is garbage, but you go to the Phillies game because Bryce Harper is an attraction. You watch the NBA All-Star game because of LeBron and Joel Embiid and Giannis and Kyrie Irving. You're not watching if I was in it, that's for sure. I'm too short and I can't jump high enough. You don't care if I play basketball. You care because of them. So these leagues, they make tons and tons and ridiculous amounts of money than these other players will ever see because of those players. And I don't think there's anything wrong with them getting their fair share of the pie. 609-403-0973 is the text board, is where that text came from here on 97.3 ESPN. Let's jump back over to people watching on YouTube. Anthony Allen chimes in on the YouTube channel and says, if they use Carson Wentz right in Indianapolis, not only will he make it to the Pro Bowl, he will take them deep into the playoffs. Well, Anthony, first of all, if you use any player right, you're going to have success, okay? Look at Jimmy Garoppolo and the 49ers. Does anybody think Jimmy Garoppolo is a top 10 quarterback in the league? Absolutely not. But guess what? They went to the Super Bowl, and they had a chance to win if it wasn't for that magic man known as Patrick Mahomes in that game. Listen, you take any competent quarterback, you put them in a good situation, they have a chance to be successful. Carson Wentz is not any exception to that. And the Colts, they have Frank Reich. They have Press Taylor now in that organization. He's got people there he's familiar with. You put him in a situation to be successful. You run the ball like they did with Jonathan Taylor last year, by the way, from South Jersey's own Jonathan Taylor. You do what the Colts did last year. You improve the defense just a little bit. Maybe you shore up the offensive line because Costanzo retired. You're right. The Colts can do well. I'm not going to promise you a Pro Bowl per se for Wentz because I think that there's so many good quarterbacks right now in the NFL. Let's assume that there's 6 quarterbacks in the Pro Bowl every year and maybe one of them gets injured, so you end up with 7. I don't know if Carson Wentz year in and year out is going to be one of the 7 most productive players in the league to get that Pro Bowl nomination. But I do agree with you, Anthony, that he does have a chance to go deep into the playoffs. Now, for the pessimistic Eagles fan, they may turn around and say, yo, Josh, you say Wentz is going to go deep into the playoffs. Last time he was in a playoff game, he got knocked out of the game due to a concussion from a cheap hit by Jadeveon Clowney. Yeah, Wentz could get injured. And I think there's maybe a part of some Eagle fans who are just so mad at Wentz. Maybe they feel that way. Maybe they look at Wentz and they see him as, glass, okay? I think the Colts think they can find a way to keep him upright, and maybe he can take him deep in the playoffs. I don't know if they're a Super Bowl team automatically, but I do agree with you, Anthony. If Wentz is in a right situation, he can take them deep into the postseason. Again, you can check out my latest article over at 973ESPN.com about Jason Peters, what he said about Carson Wentz. I write a daily article on the website over at 973ESPN.com where you can go off all your Sixers, Eagles, Flyers, Phillies, and high school sports coverage. Also at 973ESPN.com, you can find out about how you can help feed hungry people in South Jersey, right? South Jersey hungry families. The COVID-19 pandemic has been hard on a lot of people. And we here at Town Square Media are trying to help those people in any way we can. We are teaming up with the Community Food Bank of South Jersey to help those people in Atlantic, Cape May, and Cumberland counties. You can help those people. Every $25 donation, the Community Food Bank is able to provide 75 meals to our hungry neighbors. So go now, donate over at 973ESPN.com. Just click on Feed South Jersey Families where you can help South Jersey families as well. Again, $25 will help feed 75 of our families in South Jersey. All right, time for your FanDuel Sportsbook picks of the night. I don't usually do this, but I feel very strongly. I think everyone should hedge their bet for UFC 259. Jan Blachowicz is a plus 188 underdog. But on the flip side, Israel Adesanya, if he wins the fight by TKO or knockout, that's plus 135. If I were you, I would take both of those bets because to me, either Blachowicz is going to overwhelm Adesanya because of his size or Adesanya is just going to TKO him out of the universe. And a little parlay for you, Adesanya, Nunes, and Jan. All the favorites plus 187 on FanDuel Sportsbook. I'm Josh Hennig. This is Game Night. Have a great night.